Hey guys, Chris from the Ultimate Recycler. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to my little workshop here. We have a repair job to do. It wasn't one that was planned. With thanks to our dog Coco, I now have to repair, or having a go at repairing, Christine's little Jabra earbuds. I'll show you what's happened. Okay, here they are. Now you'll notice for a start they don't close properly. Okay, now I'm not exactly sure what model they are. I'll check that out and put it in the title. There's nothing written on them other than Jabra. They have Bluetooth earbuds. They work great. I've got some as well. Christine likes them. And have a look at this. The right hand one has had some trauma. Let's get a close-up on that. Now you might be correct in recognizing boxer teeth prints. Yep, Coco grabbed them. She found it on the floor. It had dropped out of the case unbeknownst to Christine. Coco happened to find it and picked it up and took it back to her mat and had a bit of a chew. And when questioned on her guilt, this is the response I got. So I think that's as guilty as I've ever seen it. Anyway, so be it. It's happened. Can we fix it? Now, I think it still does work. I think Christine tried it and says if you hold your finger on this part and press it down, it was still working. So the Bluetooth and the speaker parts still go, but because it's misshapen, it won't charge up, and you can't obviously keep holding this in just to use it. So that looks like a little aluminium plate. We may be able to just straighten that, and I presume it's kind of glued in. So let's have a look. I don't know how I'm going to go here. There's no harm in trying, as I preach with all my repairs. We either throw it out as it is, or we throw it out in lots of little pieces, or we have success and fix it. So just trying to see how this comes apart without doing any more damage. The case is cracked as well, and it's opened up a little bit around this join. Perhaps we should open that completely. There we go. Now I've no idea what's inside this. It's obviously going to have a little battery because it charges from the case, and there are your charging points there. We'll have to smooth those chew marks up. Yeah, it's not quite going to pull apart. I don't want to break any wires. Okay, that top section is a switch as well. It looks like it had a little gasket around there. It's going to be the hardest thing is going to be to get it apart without doing more damage. Okay, it was only the gasket that was holding it. That's good. I don't think we really need to worry too much about the gasket. It's not likely to be going anywhere near any water or anything. We might be able to smear a very small amount of silicone around there when we put it back together. So there's a couple of terminals there, and this center part I think is a switch that presses down on the other board. So that doesn't look badly damaged, other than the fact that the case is cracked here, which I think we can super glue back together. So really we need to get this piece of aluminium off the top, because this is the part that's actually stopping it going in the charger, and if we can't charge it, it's going to be useless. So how are we going to go getting this off? It doesn't appear to be attached around the edges. It looks like it was just glued on. Oh, that's not so bad. Okay, we can basically just panel beat that flat. It's aluminium, so it's very soft. I think we can just flatten that out, and it just works on the switch here. It's just like a membrane so that moisture can't get through, and pushes this plunger onto the circuit board. Alright, so this part isn't so bad now. I'm going to put a little bit of super glue on this cracked piece, and we'll get that to join up as best we can. And then we might just run a little file around just to clean up the burrs, and I think that will be okay. Now I'm going to have to get this circuit board under my microscope and have a good look, but it doesn't look like anything's been damaged on the board. So that center piece I think will be the switch. Yeah, I can feel it click. Oh, there we go. So the switch still works. So as long as we get the top piece, I'm not sure why it was flashing red. As long as we get the top piece all secured flat and glued down in the join, it still should work fine. I'm not sure what these pieces are here. We'll get this under the microscope. Okay, I have the main board part under my digital microscope at the moment, and if we can get a bit of a view of this, it looks undamaged. This rubber piece here was loose, but it's just actually the light cover. So I managed to get that into position, and the middle switch here works. So if we push this switch, you can see the light comes on. So there's life in the circuit. These two are contacts for the little board on the other part, so they feel spring loaded. They should be okay. So I don't think there's anything damaged here. There was a couple of burrs on the plastic which I just filed flat. So yeah, this part, which is the main part of the earbud, didn't really cop too much trauma. So hopefully it's going to work all right. Anyway, we'll put that one aside for the moment. Now the outer piece here, let's get a bit of focus on that. You can see it actually wasn't a gasket, it was just a thin bead of silicone around there to seal it anyway. We have a crack in the case there, and the rest of this part looks relatively undamaged as well. These two metal contacts here are where those spring-loaded ones go from the other board. I think this is where the light fits up against one of those now, and that is the middle switch. So everything seems okay there. So I really don't have to do much here other than just make sure there's no burrs around the edge, possibly this bit here. We'll get a bit of focus on that. You can see it's bruised on the edge there, so I have to file that flat. But yeah, this side, other than the crack, isn't so bad. If we flip this over, we can see where most of the damage is. Now there's the remains of silicone in the middle here, which I think just glued the aluminium piece onto it. And there's 3 square holes, and the aluminium piece actually has pins that fit into those holes, so we'll have to be careful not to hammer those flat. But the main work we've got to do here is, well, here's the crack from the other side, but we need to get this plastic back in shape. You can see where Coco's teeth have really deformed the plastic. So I'm going to have to allow that aluminium piece to fit in, I'm going to have to sort of grind this or cut this back square as best I can, right round, another mark there. This end's okay. So I've got a little bit of plastic panel beating to do, and since we can't just bend it and hammer it into shape, I'm going to have to sort of grind these off. I think I'll be able to get a little tool on my Dremel and just clean those up. So the last piece to look at under here is the little aluminium panel, and you can see there that the center part there pushes on the switch, but there's also some silicone around here that I assume just glued it in place, plus these square pins. There's one there, one over that side, and one over this side. So there's 3 of those. So we won't want to damage those because they kind of located in the right spot. But we do need to try and flatten it out somehow without damaging this switch part. We should be able to get this silicone off here, perhaps. And there's a metal pin there too. I'm not sure what that does. Oh, it's not metal. Oh, okay, there's 2 of them. That must locate either side of the switch. So that's going to make our panel beating a little bit tricky, because we don't really want to damage those pins. Alright, I might just have to get some pliers and try and bend it straight. As I said, aluminium is pretty soft, so hopefully we can get that straight without damaging all those pins. You know what, I don't think this is aluminium, I think it's actually plastic. It keeps springing back. But it was bent in my Coco's teeth, so maybe we can bend it back. It is coming, but it's certainly not going to be perfect. I don't really want to snap it. These pliers look like giant jaws of life, and they're quite small pliers. Now we also have issues, I think, with this little post. I think it's been squashed over. So we'll try and straighten this little post, but I don't know how we're going to go. It's probably better off not being there than being bent, because at least if it's not there, we can still have the panel flat. If it's bent over, it's not going to go in the little hole, and it will mean the panel won't sit flat. It's straightening up. I'm surprised it hasn't broken off. There we go, that's not too bad. Let's zoom back onto the one the other side. That's fine. And that one's a bit bent as well. Okay, they've straightened up pretty well. We need to get that plate straighter though. Okay, we're not going to get rid of that awful crater effect, but you can see that the little plate isn't aluminium, it is actually just plastic, because the metal type paint is just starting to come off. Look at that. So we might as well give that a bit of a brush off and clean that up a bit. But I've actually got the plate fairly flat. Still got a little bit of a curl, but I think that will be flat enough to go in there and clip in position. Okay, I don't know how we're going to go here. The camera's in the road, but we will just try grinding a little bit of this plastic away, and then I'll finish it off camera. But just to show you how I'm going to tackle it. Let's get a good focus on a bad piece to start with. And we can see if we can get the Dremel. I've got a little fine grinding bit on the end of the Dremel. This is going to be, apologies to anyone that really hates the dentist. And let's see how we go. We'll just do a fairly slow speed for a start, and see if we can not make a mess of this. The bit's actually a bit big. Yeah, it's a bit big. I might have to get in there with a knife and just clean it out. I've taken the bad lumpy bits off the top. Yeah, and the knife can clean out those little burrs, I think. Yeah, I think that'll work all right. We'll just go around and clean the edges up as best we can. And we should then be able to clip the outside piece in here without too much trouble. Okay, I've been working at this for a while, and I've just tried to fit this plate back in, and it's pretty good. It looks a mess, but it's much flatter. However, this end, you can see I've filed the plastic down a bit, and it's looking a lot neater, but I still need to take a bit more away from inside this end so that the plate can fit in. But the little square feet seem to clip in okay, so I think it's actually going to come back together mechanically all right, but whether it's all working, I'm not sure. So it's not very pretty, guys, but I have got it together. I've glued that crack. I've filed the rough parts down. That little panel fits in there nicely. I actually gouged away on the end there for quite a while, and then I actually filed the plate to suit it. So, whoops, let's stay in focus. So it fits quite neatly now, and it actually pushes in. It's supposed to be spring loaded a little bit to be able to operate the clips. The switches. So I think that's as good as I'm going to get it. and we've cleaned up that side, and now that the crack's been glued and it seems solid, I'm going to put it all back together. Now I'm going to probably just use a little bit of silicone, a really fine bead of silicone just around the outside, so that it can be dismantled again if we need to. Mind you, I don't think there's anything else I can do. If this doesn't work, it's just going to be e-waste, unfortunately, but it was worth a try. We've repaired the mechanical damage, even though it's not pretty, and as long as these switches connect okay, and as long as the circuit board's alright, hopefully it will still be usable. So I'll just get a little smear of silicone around there, and then it should clip together quite neatly, and it will fit back in the charger once it all goes together, and hopefully it charges. Okay, we still have a problem. It fits in the case nicely now, so at least that works, but physical dimensions aren't a fix. When we put this other one back in the case, it flashes green on the case and it flashes the light up there, whereas when I put this other one in the case now, we have no lights. So I don't think it's charging, and I just checked the meter and there's 3.9 volts on each of those charging pins, so that works fine. The back of the thing, the earbud, isn't overly deformed, so I'm sure those contacts are actually connecting, but we've got nothing happening. So that's disappointing, because it's I mean, it's a bit rough, but it would work if we can get it to charge. Perhaps I should just go and check with Christine and see if it actually works now. There might be enough charge in it to operate it. And then, I don't know, we might try and pull it apart again and see if there's an issue with the battery contacts at the back. I mean, it could have major problems in the circuit board. I don't know. But we may as well try. Okay, it's about a week later, and I can report that the earbud has been working fine for about a day, and then it went totally flat. So it does work, and it's been performing as the other one, except it does not charge. So it's now totally out of charge, and we can't seem to get it to charge at all. So I'm going to pull it apart a bit more, have another look, because it's no good how it is. But I'm pleased that everything else kind of worked, but we need to perhaps pull it apart even more and try and get into the battery area and see why it's not charging. Okay, now when I put it back together last time, we just used silicone, which was, in hindsight, a wise move, because if we had have super glued it, we wouldn't be getting back in here quite so easily. So if I do get the thing working properly, I'll probably will super glue it. Although the silicone certainly did work fine. Okay, so all that part's okay. As rough as it looks, it still works. Now let's see if we can delve into where the battery is. I don't know if this entire section comes out. Oh, it looks like it might. There was a bit of movement there. I don't know what's supposed to hold it in, I guess, because, oops, that's a part of the switch. We better not lose that. Oh no, that's the light cover, which goes on here somewhere. Okay, there we go. She's all out. We can see some terminals here. I might get the charging case and set this in and just double check that we're having our voltage come through those pads, and that little piece there is the magnet. Be a little neodymium magnet, quite a powerful one, just sits inside the case there. So that part looks okay. The battery must be in here. So there are our contacts, which still look okay. Doesn't appear to be any damage there. Maybe there's not a lot of spring on them. Maybe that it wasn't pushed right in hard enough. I might check to see if we've got any. Well, we know we haven't got any battery power because it's dead flat. How do we get the battery out? Little flex cable there. Wonder if that board just unclips. Yeah, it's probably glued in place, I think. Well, there's two little pins it pushes over. We might be able to lever it off. Let's see if that will essentially unplug. Yeah, I get the feeling it's glued as well. Okay, we have a positive and a negative terminal there. The positive one doesn't seem to have much spring. It looks like it's been pressed flat. So I wonder if the squashing pressure from the dog's teeth has squashed it flat somehow, because there was actually a couple of tooth imprints around here. If it's squashed it flat and it hasn't sprung back, we might not have connection. I wonder if actually I apply our 3.9 volts to those two terminals, whether we'll get any flashing light here to indicate that it's charging. Perhaps we could try that. It might be just a simple matter of no connection between these pads and those contacts. Okay, I've dialed up 3.8 volts. I think it was 3.9 that needs to go into these two terminals. Let's see if we can get it connected. Let's just apply it like this. We won't be able to see the lights, it's the only trouble. Oh, is there a light flash on the other side? It's coming to life. I hope we haven't put too much voltage through it. There we go, it looks like it's going to charge. So I'm not sure if you guys could see that, but we put a little bit of life in the battery then. So we've bent that terminal up. Let's see if we can bend this one up. There we go, that's bent that one up a little bit. They don't appear to be spring-loaded. Maybe it just relies on this pushing right home into the housing and it was dislodged a bit. So with those adjusted, let's see if we can push it home without breaking anything. And let's see if we have some lights by applying voltage to these terminals or contacts. Trouble is I don't know which one's positive now. We might go and get the case, it'd be safer. I don't want to reverse the voltage because we might end up blowing something. I'll go and find the case. Okay, I'm not really getting anywhere now. I've tried in the charger and nothing happened. I put the power leads back on here and I couldn't get the light to flash again, so I hope I haven't burnt something out. It might have been 3.3 volts rather than 3.9, but hopefully that hasn't burned anything out. But now I can't seem to get a continuity between the negative and what I would assume is a ground connection here. There's one on the other side too. So I'm going to try and lever this whole bracket off and take the battery out, or at least access that part of it. I think this just unclips. It looks like it's going to pull off. Yeah, it does unclip. And that's still got the flexible connector. And we have a cap. Looks like a foil cap over the top of the battery. Wonder if that'll come off. I don't think it's, I think it's part of the battery. I don't think it's a normal replaceable like a watch battery. Well, it's a rechargeable one, so that wouldn't be the case. But that foil cap seems to be well and truly attached. It's part of the actual battery, so we won't pry that off. Get that pressed down. So we have a connection there to the board. And it looks like it's to the case of the battery, and so does this one. So I don't know where the positive connects, and we can't get this battery off unless we unsolder these. Yeah, maybe we can try that. We've got nothing to lose. I guess we could make sure we have continuity between these spring terminals and the board. We have continuity between the positive and the third terminal. What about the negative? Whoa, power's gone off. Okay, I'm back, and the power interruption wasn't because I shorted something out. We have an electrician here doing a bit of work in the house, and my shed was on a different circuit, but he had to end up turning the whole lot off to do a PowerPoint. So yeah, everything went off, including my concentration. I've put the meter to diode check. You should be able to hear that beep, and we'll just check these terminals back to the board. Oh, now I have a bit of power, and I have to admit I've been mucking around with this a little bit before I started filming again, and I think I've got it to charge, but this is what I was doing before the power went off, just checking that each of these terminals goes back to the board. That was the negative, the positive is there, and these other two must be the little speaker. It's got a little bit of charge in the battery again now, which really pleases me. And the other speaker terminal is there. So all four of these terminals or contacts are connecting back to the board nicely. That's what I was trying to establish when the power went off. Now, I got a bit of charge in the battery. What I did was that I orientated this black part the way that it goes in the little charging case. And we'll keep you in shot if I can. And it goes that way. And I pushed it onto the terminals. And once I got it orientated properly, it was making connection. Even the green light comes on the case. So that's exactly what they should do when they're charging. And if I hold it on for a little bit, it flashes again. I'm not sure what the flashing means. There we go, there's a little flash under my finger. So it's actually charging. It's accepting a charge, which is awesome. I think I can put that back together. I've just got to make sure. And when I take it off, it's now demonstrating a bit of charge. So I can clip this black plastic housing back on. I'm confident now that everything's okay in there. And we just really need to make sure that these little spring-loaded terminals or contacts, which I have bent out a little bit, actually contact with those little gold contacts there. We might just run a file over the back of this to make sure it sits flat. In fact, what we can do is we'll just sit this piece in there now, how it goes. The magnet holds it in position, and we'll check with the meter to see if we've got voltage through on those little gold contacts. We'll set our meter back to DC voltage. I think you can see it there. The screen's not very bright, but you should be able to see it. And we'll put the leads on those gold contacts in the bottom of the case, and we have 3.87 volts. So it was about 3.9, and that's good. It means that's contacting properly. So excellent. So I don't think the case is an issue now. We've just got to make sure that the innards seat properly onto those gold contacts. And now that I've bent these little spring contacts here, we should be right. So let's put it all back together and see how we go. So we need to make sure that it's the right, well, it's a certain shape, but it can only fit in one way. We need to make sure that those connections make proper contact. I don't think anything locates it, it just kind of fits in. I guess we can check it now before we assemble the rest of it and see if it is charging. No. So there's our problem. We need to make sure it sits deeper in the case to make a proper connection. Okay, what's stopping that? Alright, from what I can see, there is a particularly deep tooth mark here, and that has deformed the plastic in the bottom here, and I reckon that's holding the assembly up off these contacts. I'm going to have to try and grind a little bit out of that plastic. So this job is looking more and more like dentistry the further we get into it. Now this time we're going to be making a cavity. No, that's working well. Oh, pretty good. I think we'll go a little bit more. We don't want to drill a hole right through it though. Oh, that looks really neat. Okay, let's see if we get contact now. Okay, did that go in any deeper? Not sure. No, we still have no life. I might have to do a little bit more grinding away in there, but I think that's what's happening. The insert just simply isn't sitting low enough to connect. Alright, so I cleaned it out a little bit more in there, and I did bend those contacts just a little bit more, and now if there's a bit of pressure on it, it seems to connect and charge, but you do need to hold a bit of pressure down. It does seem to be working once everything lines up. I might have to play with it a little bit more just to get it connecting better. There you go. The problem is there's nothing to really hold this circuitry and battery into the bottom of the case. It just sits there and it relies on the rest of the case, I guess, to press it down. So given that it needs to be a little bit of pressure on it, which way does it go around that way? I might have to just clean up where it joins again and maybe some super glue and clamp it. And hopefully that works, because once we super glue it, it's going to be pretty hard to get it open again. And here's the fully assembled earbud. I did clean out the join a little bit better where the silicone was and scraped a little bit more plastic, and it sits quite snugly. It actually almost clipped back together. So instead of silicone, when I would have had to clamp it for 12 hours because it kept springing open, because it clipped quite neatly and almost held, I just put 3 dots of super glue, just one on each corner. It's kind of a triangle, so it kind of has 3 corners, and that will hold it securely. And if I ever need to get back into it, I probably can, but I really don't want to tackle this thing again. I cleaned it up with a little bit of IPA and it looks pretty neat now. It's certainly got some wall wounds, as you'd expect. Perhaps if I had a gold texture I could touch up that top plate, but it looks quite good. It's back in its original shape mostly, and when we drop it in the charger, the light comes on and it flashes at the top. I think it flashes and it charges. So let's put the other one in, because I think that's mostly flat too. And they're going. We'll give them back to Christine. Hopefully it charges well and holds its charge. I'll get a quick report to conclude this video. It's now the next day and the judge's report is in. The functionality of these earbuds is perfect. They work well, they charge well. If we put them in the charger here, I've turned the lights down a bit so you can see the lights on here, but I've got a really weird yellow effect. My camera has trouble adjusting to the lighting. We'll put this side in. Flashes red on top, green on the case. This side in. Exactly the same. Flashes red on the top, green on the case. It charges. I think Christine downloaded an app for it and it says it's at 100% charge. We did have a weird flashing purple light yesterday after I put them in the case, but that apparently they just needed resetting and repairing to the phone. So brilliant. Functionality, absolutely perfect. Cosmetically, well, we lose a few marks there, but considering that Coco gave this a really good chomp, I think it's come up pretty good and perfectly usable. So mission successful, guys. Was it worth it? No. Economically, certainly not. I spent quite a few hours on this. It was worth it, I guess, to save them from going to the tip. Not that there's a lot of landfill there. It's worth it that we don't have to go and buy new ones. We have managed to save something that most people throw out, and that is worth it to me because that's very satisfying. It's nice to be able to do this. It's a learning thing as well for me. I've never mucked around with these before. I like the little mechanical repairing, and electronic wise I'm able to test a few things, enough to get me out of trouble. So successful repair. If your dog eats your earbuds, give the dog a good talking to. Coco's still not talking to me about it. Every time I show her this, she disappears. Okay, thanks for watching, guys. Catch you in the next video. Bye for now.